Good morning. It's story time. Welcome to Deb's Digest. I'm going to take a walk this morning to show you how beautiful it is here. It's going to be a short walk because it is really hot here this morning. And the story I'm going to tell you about, because people ask me this all of the time, what is it like to have gallbladder problems? My gallbladder problems started many years ago before I had my surgery when I was pregnant. It was when I was living in Colorado in the year 2000, after I had my fifth baby, and we were driving through Colorado Springs. We had just eaten some pizza at this really cool train restaurant in Colorado Springs, and then we were driving around some fancy neighborhoods just looking at the houses, and all of a sudden I got this tremendous pain that radiated from about right here, and it was visceral, meaning I couldn't really pinpoint where it was originating. It was just a tremendous pain that was radiating up this side of my body, deep inside of my body, and just like the worst cramp in the world. And that went on, and I couldn't get any relief. And it was a half-hour drive from Colorado Springs to Castle Rock, where we lived. And I don't remember, because it was so many years ago, that was 19 years ago. So I don't remember how long it took for me to get rid of the pain, or if I even did anything to get rid of it. And I think that was probably my first gallbladder attack. Then I was pregnant with my sixth child, and I had several gallbladder attacks during that pregnancy. I remember having so much cramping, similar to what I had on the first in Colorado when I was shopping, that I actually had to sit down on the floor. That's a vague memory, so I don't know the details on that. The third one that I had was, the problem with gallbladder is that unless you're ready for surgery, to the point where you need surgery and you're just passing smaller stones, the pain, by the time you decide to go to the doctor, the pain has dissipated, so you don't even know that that's what's causing your trouble, and not likely that the doctor would do anything about it anyway. So pain levels probably around a 5 or a 6 on those type of situations. The third one happened when I was pregnant again with baby number 6, and the pain was so bad. I remember my husband had to go to a meeting, and he just left, and then all I could do was just sit in the bathtub and cry. And after the 7th child was born, so in between a baby number 6 and baby number 7, I had gotten a lot more handle on my diet as far as fat content was concerned. So I ate a lot healthier, so I was getting less gallbladder attacks. So I didn't really have too much trouble with my 7th pregnancy. But after he was born, that's when all of this garbage with the celiac stuff started. And let's see, it was in 2012, so I'd been dealing with this for about 12 years, not knowing that this was my gallbladder. In 2012, that was also the year my husband had his heart surgery. If you've watched any of my other videos, like when he was starting to have his heart trouble, was actually right at like within weeks of my gallbladder surgery. So I started to have these episodes that over and over and over again. Weeks wouldn't even go by and I would have them. And my husband and I went on a little weekend getaway, and we went to trying to think of what the restaurant was, P.F. Chang's, and I had only had Brussels sprouts, but they were cooked in oil, and I started having these new sensations that were concerning because I'd never felt them before, where I had a sharp pain. I'll show you right here, just below my sternum and to the right, and I felt that pretty strongly and pretty constantly. And then another time we went to Olive Garden, and I remember coming home about an hour or two later and just having to lay on the floor with this cramping that feels like a horse had kicked me right there. And this kind of pain would go on for, I would have episodes after episode after episode, and they would be random. And it got to the point where I couldn't actually trace it back to anything I had eaten, because they were becoming so frequent, and there were so many different varieties of situations that I knew that I was in a different kind of situation than I had been in previous years, and I was starting to suspect that it was my gallbladder or something else far worse. And the episodes would start to feel like 1 minute I'm feeling fine, right? And then I'd start to find right there in that part of my sternum, I'd start to have this cramping, just like really bad gas. And then it would get like the worst bloating and cramping ever. And then it would be pain like I'd never felt in childbirth, like up to an 8 or a 9. And I would be rolling and crying with pain, like a horse had kicked me really hard in that part of my stomach. And these episodes would come on at any time, any given time. It could be at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I apologize for the sun being behind me. Can't see the person that's talking to you. It will change soon. I'm going around going around a park that goes in a circle here. I'll give you the view. It's beautiful. It's one of the last rural areas of Central Florida. It's just gorgeous. Anyway, so this was becoming like almost a daily thing. And like one night I gave up going to the symphony because I was having an attack. And the next morning I would have another attack. And finally I just went in, talked to my doctor about it. Oh, first I went to the chiropractor. And chiropractor diagnosed me with gallbladder disease. And he said, oh, well, you need to help your bile duct work. So we're going to just massage around here. And he massaged around there, and he could replicate that sharp pain, there I am, that sharp pinching pain that I was having before on that day of P.F. Chang's. And I don't know if he felt anything. I think he said he felt swelling in there. And naturopathic people will tell you, oh, well, you can do this and this and this to pass the stones. So, drink lots of olive oil and it will relax your sphincter and you'll pass the stones. Now, that would have been ridiculous in my case, and you'll know why when I tell you the rest of the story. So I tried eating zero fat, which, as you probably know because of my husband's heart trouble, we are very low-fat, plant-based eaters. So I thought, at the time I was doing the Esselstyn program, I thought that would protect me from having any more gallbladder attacks. But it got to the point where even just eating watermelon would trigger an attack. And that's when I knew I was in trouble. Went to the doctor, medical doctor, and she said, well, let's go ahead and order you an ultrasound. So she ordered me an ultrasound, and I go in, and the ultrasound tech says, in for your gallbladder, while he's looking at it, right? He says, in for your gallbladder, huh? I said, yeah. He goes, well, let me give you some advice. If you have another attack between now and the time you see the surgeon, when you have an attack, I want you to roll your body around a lot. I'm like, okay, well, ultrasound techs are not supposed to tell you the diagnosis, what they see, which he didn't, and they're not supposed to give you any treatment. But I think he felt pretty safe in just telling me to roll around. I think he felt bad for me. I think he really felt bad for me. So I was swept in very quickly to see a surgeon, and then went in for my surgery, and it was unexpectedly a serious situation. When he got in there, he found the biggest, most swollen gallbladder he had ever seen. The surgery took 6 hours instead of 2 hours, and so that meant a lot of anesthesia. And when I came to, he said that I had 4 large stones the size of Aggie marbles, and they were the largest stones he'd ever seen in all of the years that he'd done surgery. So I didn't even have any little stones. I had formed these 4 large stones, probably maybe from having so many babies. Being fat, 40 and female, is the perfect constellation for developing gallbladder disease. Having lots of babies actually adds to it, but they're worth it. So yeah, recovery from surgery was tough, and whenever somebody tells me that they've had gallbladder surgery, I always feel so empathetic towards them because my recovery was so tough. And yet I see people heal so much more quickly than I do, and I just wonder if it was because I was so inflamed from that. And the reason why I'm telling you this story is because he told me that his wife had had surgery, gallbladder surgery, just prior to the time that I had it, and he said she was just diagnosed with celiac disease as well. And so I'll show you this little squirrel over here. There he is. There he goes. There he goes. There he goes. Up the tree. Be just a minute. Okay, I'll show you a picture of our gazebo. And our big oak tree. I'm going to turn around. I'll be in the sun again in a second. I didn't want to follow one of my neighbors and have her listening, talking to myself in the phone. A little self-conscious there. So he said that his theory was that celiacs have a higher chance of developing gallbladder disease. I would guess because everything is inflamed and it just holds on to stuff and doesn't work that efficiently. Probably the bladder doesn't pump out the stuff as efficiently because it's in inflammation mode all the time. I want to comment on symptoms because mine were not classic, and that's why it took. I'm allergic to hornets. I have one following me. I didn't have the classic symptoms, which I think took longer for me to get diagnosed. I had interviewed so many people in those 12 years about what their bad gallbladders felt like, and so many of them had said that they felt this pain through their back and up to their shoulder. I mentioned that my attack in Colorado had gone up into my shoulder, but I didn't know anything about gallbladder disease back then. I thought I was having a heart attack or something. I didn't know what was wrong with me, or just a really, 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 really bad muscle cramp. I don't know. But I never ever had that pain radiating into my back or into my upper shoulder. Everything was just right there underneath my rib cage, and like a horse was kicking me right there. And for me, it was just like, you know how when you're coming down with a really bad gas episode and lots of bloating and cramping intestines, that was it for me. And then it was just like, when it got really bad, it was ramping up to like a 9 in the pain scale. I should have gone in a lot sooner than I did. And I remember the very last gallbladder attack I ever had, when I knew that I was scheduled for the surgeon, I was debating as to whether I should go to the ER because the pain was horrible. I would just be on my knees, and I was kneeling on the couch, on my elbows on the couch, because that was the only position I could have even a little bit of relief, and just crying like a baby. And I have a really high pain tolerance. I've given birth to 7 children without any pain medications, and I got to tell you, that pain that I had on that last attack before my surgery was absolutely worse than childbirth. Let's see, what else can I tell you? Recovery from surgery took 3 weeks. I never wish surgery on anybody now that I know what it feels like. I remember waking up on a table. I don't know if they had moved me from the OR, or had wheeled me. I don't know how I was transported, but I remember waking up and trying to readjust my body to a more comfortable position, and feeling so much pain that it stopped me from trying to adjust at all. And that was the main incision that was hurting. I had 3 incisions, one here, and one above my belly button. They did it all laparoscopically. And I'm going to turn around again so I don't freak out my neighbor. And they pump gas into you, so when you first wake up from the surgery, for the first 2 days, you can actually feel the gas up into your chest, which is kind of a scary prospect, because you're thinking pressure in the chest that's related to the heart, and you have to get that out somehow, and it takes a few days for that to come out. Laughing and crying is a no-go. My kids, I laugh about it now, but it was terrible then. One of my kids said, "Love your guts," and he got me laughing so hard and the pain was so tremendously bad from the laughing that I ended up crying, which, that was just a vicious cycle, because the pain was making me cry. And I couldn't stop the crying because I was in pain, but I needed to stop the crying so that I wouldn't be in pain anymore. I was surprised at the lack of interest that people had in my situation. I expected to hear from people. Morning. You going for a walk? She's so cute. Yeah. I didn't hear from anybody. I didn't hear from any of my friends. I think I heard from my mom. But 3 weeks into it, after my third week, finally a lady at church called me and said, "Oh, I heard you had surgery." And I was like, "Yeah, that was 3 weeks ago. Was there anything we could do for you?" "Yeah, 3 weeks ago there would have been." But that's okay. But point is that it was kind of hard, and I learned that I want to be there for people. Oh, I hope I follow my own motivator there. Anyway, on the third week, I actually went into SVT, and if you want to know about SVT, you could go on to my video about SVT. I ended up having to call an ambulance, and that's still another 20-minute story right there, so I'm not going to tell that story. Ended up in the hospital, and I did go home that day, but I had just started doing too much too soon after the surgery. So I think that's the whole entire story. The recovery was good once I got past that 3-week mark. I haven't been, because of the celiac disease, a pizza eater since my surgery. So I can't really comment on what it's like to get back to the normal standard American diet. But from what I understand, it's pretty brutal from other people with the diarrhea and stuff like that. Because I'm on a low-fat, plant-based diet, I really haven't had any struggles lacking a gallbladder, except for when I fast. And I fast very frequently. I fast practically every Sunday. But I have to be really careful not to pig out after I break the fast, because if I do, then I'll end up with gastric distress. So it's interesting. Just a note for any of you celiacs who are watching this. Another reason why it's hard to know whether you've got a gallbladder issue or not is because a gallbladder attack, a mild gallbladder attack, mild to moderate, feels exactly like being glutened. And so that was part of my problem. I was newly learning that I was a celiac and what that felt like to be glutened. And so I was confusing that with my gallbladder attacks. That cramping and bloating that you get when you've been glutened is identical to the pain that I had when I was having my mild to moderate gallbladder attacks. And the severe gallbladder attacks felt so much worse. It was like being glutened 10 times over. So that's the rest of my story. I hope that this will help somebody as they decide whether they should go to the doctor or not. I hope it helps those who are deciding whether to treat the gallbladder naturally or not. That was a decision that I was mulling over for a whole year, which was a stupid idea. I should have gone in a year earlier. I probably would have had an easier surgery. Gallstones would probably have been a lot smaller. The natural things didn't work for me. And in hindsight, I have been able to live without my gallbladder quite nicely. And it was just a minor adjustment in my life. So hopefully this is helpful. If anybody else would like to share their story, ask questions, or make any comments, I would really love to hear them. So thank you for going on my walk with me, and hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.